If you just joined us, this is The Press. We're reaching you live from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we'll go straight to analyzing the stories that we read out to you before we went on that quick break. Our guest on the show this morning is Israel Fagbemigun. He is a journalist. It's great to have you on the show again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Likewise. All right, so viewers, our phone lines are open. You can call in to make your contributions and ask your questions. We apologized yesterday. We could not open our phone lines. The network was really messy at that time. All right, so let's quite a number of stories to talk about, but like they say, time is really not our friend, but we'll try and see how we can manage our time. We'll start with the Vanguard newspaper. In fact, the whole newspaper has the story about the 10th National Assembly leadership, the tussle, and I like the way Guardian has their own. They talked about they used chess as their visual or their infographic right there, saying it's going to be head-to-head battle between the candidates rather. So let's start with that. And now we're getting the story that we already have a new Senate president in that's Senator Godswill Apkabio, with all of the controversies, the fights, the tussle. And this 10th Assembly, the tussle was really around religion, ethnicity, and do you have money? If you got it, flaunt it. What's your response to all of this?
Well, I think the people get the kind of leaders they deserve. The system, what has happened today is a reflection of the kind of system we run. And it's not unexpected. Ordinarily, I didn't expect Senator Godswill Apkabio to be able to defeat Senator Abdulaziz Yari.
No, you didn't?
I didn't expect him.
Oh, wow.
But of course, when you consider the fact
even
that
though that position was microzoned?
The microzone doesn't really matter. What matters is the strength of the candidates that we're talking about. I'm sure that what really gave the difference was the presidency.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. The reason that being the national leader of the party also.
Then the other opposition, I'm sure the 3 senators from Rivers voted for him, the 3 from Oyo voted for him, the woman from Abuja voted for him, and a number of others. I think those are the factors that work for him. But for him, but for all that, himself alone doesn't have the capacity to combat the person of Senator Abdulaziz Yari.
You keep talking about capacity. What do you mean when you talk about capacity?
If you look at their history,
okay,
Abdulaziz Yari came into government like an independent person. If you look at the way he emerged in Zamfara as governor was like swimming against the tide. And he emerged as governor. He was in the House of Reps before he went, and he emerged as governor. He did very excellently well as governor in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the obligations of government to the people. He did very well. Then he also rose to be Nigerian's Governor Forum chairman. That's not a very cheap feat to achieve. And even after then, despite the fact that he lost outrightly 4 years ago through the court because of the internal wranglings within the party, he had remained very relevant in the system. So for a man to come from that background and you want to compete with him...
But it's not any less of his contender.
His contender has been somebody who has always leaned on the shoulders of people who are bigger. Apkabio didn't become governor alone. It could be said that Yari became governor alone, singularly on his popularity, but somebody helped Apkabio to be governor. Since after then, he came into the Senate, somebody helped him again to be minister. I'm sure the game he played about during the party's manifesto and presidential primary is what is working out for him now. He was the first to step down for Tinubu. And I think that in a way influenced other persons to follow the same direction. So I think that is what is working for him.
Is that not what politicking is all about?
Yeah, but you know, it is lazy. In my opinion, it is a lazy politician that play that kind of game. If you are really strong, you stand on your own name and you go to the battle. I respect those who swim against the tide more than those who are conformists, natural conformists to let's do it this way this is what Baba said, this is what the leader said, this is what the Kabat said. I respect, because ideologically, yes, people say there's no ideology in Nigerian politics, but there's no politics without ideology. It may be a bad ideology that our people, our own leaders, political leaders have. Most of them are eternal bourgeois, most of them are people, they don't even, some of them are, even not to have ideology is even an ideology. Most of them are Confucianists who don't even know what they stand for. They just want money, fame, until they go beyond, under the 6 feet. So, but I feel that, for me, Abdulaziz Yari he has lost the battle, but he may eventually win the war. Because to have over 40 votes against the presidency, against a number of opposition lawmakers, opposition state governors coming against you, against majority governors in your party, is not a mean feat to attain.
So are you saying that this is going to be like a political vendetta? We're waiting for you. Sleep and we'll catch you.
Well, I know that the president is a seasoned and astute politician, so he has capacity to stabilize. And his steps in the last 15 days, I think it's about 15 days now that since he has been president, his steps in the last 15 days has shown that he's ready to stabilize power and political interest in Nigeria. If he continues, there may not be a problem. But again, if he doesn't, there's likely to be a problem, especially in the National Assembly, because the kind of elements who are in the camp of the opposition in the Senate, they are not people who sway very easily. They are not people who need little or nothing from the presidency. They are people who are made by themselves, either politically or in business before they came. Take, for instance, the man from Ondo State who was the DG of the campaign of Abdulaziz Yari. He's a multi-billionaire. He needs little or nothing.
So don't you think that's the kind of thing that we need in the Senate? We don't want, at this point, I don't think we need OES members.
And that's why I said these are people who have minds of their own, who can decide to do things the way they want to do it. So if the man who is Senate president doesn't find a way of negotiating along their interest to have a peaceful Senate, he may be sitting on a keg of gunpowder.
Okay, so before we leave that story, and I'm going to ask you two questions, and I'd like you to take them in one breath, because you talked about the presidential primaries, and we saw all that happened, how you have people who just step down to have their leader, their flag bearer. And then I recall when I passed through some areas in Abuja, I just saw the very gigantic billboards of who will become the next Senate president. And in my mind, I'm wondering, Nigerians, they don't have a say in this, because I actually again saw a protest saying that some lawmakers decided to protest at the Unity Fountain, that they were not allowed to also vote. So if lawmakers are protesting in that regard, so what is Nigerians' business in terms of the election? So why all that show off? And then at the end of the day, you have people who will decide, okay, we are stepping down, like Betara you talked about, like Gagdi who you talked about, who stepped down. Okay, this is the person that has been chosen. So why all of that show? That's one on the side. And then secondly, do you see this 10th assembly, even despite the fact that it is quite colorful, you have different parties at the moment, do you see it being the kind of one that we had in the 9th assembly, or the very dramatic 8th assembly?
Well, as for the Senate, I can vouch for the fact that you won't have an all-yes Senate, because the kind of elements that are in the Senate at the moment they are more extreme ideologies than that of the 9th Senate. The 9th Senate was such. The 9th Senate leadership was elected when the opposition has already given in. They already gave in to the fact that, okay, we have lost power already, and there's nothing we can do about it. But this time around, the opposition that the 9th Senate will have will be from the APC itself. So it's not going to be business as usual when compared to that of 9th Senate. Then going back to why people fly big balls across the city and later go back and step down. You see, we have to understand some things. The Nigerian politics is more complex than what the average journalist or the average investigative journalist or political reporter can capture. Most of these people aspire for bigger offices, knowing fully whether they will not be able to get it, but they want to negotiate for some juicy committee heads and other things within after the race. Take for instance, I know one of the aspirants who actually contested to spite the other one, just to let them know that the other
so it's not for public service, it's just for spite.
It's at that level. The issue of public service is lesser in their consideration. It's not even up to 10%. At the level of who becomes Senate President, who becomes Speaker, you don't talk about public service because they believe that we are all here for public service. So how they choose who is now going to lead us, who are all here for public service, will depend on what interests individuals have. That's what it depends on. And again, the billboards you see, most of those people who fly those billboards are potential contractors who have one or two things they are eyeing from the Senate or from the reps. They have hundreds of millions, billions of contracts that will roll out in the next 4 years. There are capital projects, there are ZIPs, zonal intervention projects, there are special projects. The Speaker of the House of Representatives has at least 400 aides. That's no small thing. None of them will earn less than 200,000 naira. None. Because he had aides across the 30 states. And most of the times, some of these things are given as compensations to followers of his colleagues, his supporters. So a lot of things people who fly those billboards, some of the times they may not even be the ones to fly for them. Take for instance, I had a job from one of the contenders in Senate today. Somebody came to engage me on a particular issue. It has to do with image making and perception management. He paid well over 2 million naira for his friend who wants to be Senate President. I'm sure the aspirant himself doesn't even know. Except when he now sees it on the national television and say, so person did this for me. So a lot of interest, a lot of economic interest are in the politics of Nigeria. So that will not make you to be surprised if you understand how that runs when you see their billboards and everywhere. These questions have always come up that you are doing your elections within yourself. You are holding the voting system, sessions within yourself. Why come to the town and erect billboards?
Exactly.
But again, that in a way shapes perception management. It shapes public perception such that that whoever is, if there's an impression that this person is not serious, when you see his billboard somewhere in Maraba, you know that this person is serious.
Serious. So all right, so very quickly, because you talked about aides, you talked about the House of Representatives, the Speaker of the House, how many aides he has, and they were recalled a few days ago where President Tinubu asked for a specific amount of aides, and then people kept asking, why do you need so much? But then you keep talking about cutting cost of governance. So in that regard, what are your thoughts?
Well, yes, it is good to cut the cost of governance. But some of the times, if you look at the fact that politics is about participation, what gives legitimacy to any democratic government is about people who are being patronized under them. And patronage in that way. Take for instance the National Assembly as a whole. Until now, I don't know if it will change in the 10th Assembly, but I know each honorable member is entitled to 5 aides that are paid by the National Assembly Service Commission. If you multiply that by 360 and you add it to those that senators are also entitled to, there are about 5,000 people.
And then you have people complaining about Governor Wike's plenty aides.
No, that is the state. That's the subnational. There's a lot of money in the federal government compared to the states. And again, if you the Rivers State is like a country on its own. It's like a mini country. Rivers and Lagos and a number of other few countries like Kano, Rivers, Lagos. You can't compare those. Those are bigger states within the microcosm of Nigeria. Those are states that are bigger than some countries, than many countries, not even some countries. So, coming back to the National Assembly, it's about participation, it's about patronage. Whether you like it or not, those who are appointed as aides to either rep members, senators, the speaker, or other sundry offices cannot say that they are part of the unemployed in Nigeria in the next 4 years. So that has also taken away. And whoever serves in that capacity for 4 years and is prudent enough can stay alone as an entrepreneur for the rest of his or her lives. So it's a way of granting legitimacy or gaining legitimacy for the government, trying to put a lot of people on board, carry a lot of people along, bring a lot of people on board so that the legitimacy of the government will be established and the government will be balanced. And going to the president, 20 special advisor cannot be too much. It can't be too much. Because how many ministries do we have? The functional ministries, there are well over 20. Very functional ones. And if he's calculating using special advisors instead of ministers, that's cutting cost. Because the number of aides that a minister has is not the same thing as what a special advisor has. Then the minister will parade longer convoys.
Or maybe even the permanent secretary.
So
all right.
It's a way of granting legitimacy through political patronage and bringing more people on board to participate in the system. And I think I am not totally against it. I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, since you said it's going to bring forth some kind of employment, I think we'll just buy that and take it from you. But today, we will not also ignore the fact that today happens to be the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly. And like all you've said so far, if I took anything from what you said, we're not hoping or we're not expecting them to be rubber stamped like they call the 9th National Assembly. So what else are you expecting from this National Assembly? Who are you looking out for, and who do you think will perform really well?
Well, we have a Senate president already. I expect those who are in the other camp or the other side of the divide politically today, the 46 members who didn't vote for him, to form a formidable force to put him constantly on check, to put his activities constantly on check. And by that, I expect some very productive and rigorous debate and cross-fertilization of ideas in the Senate. I know that there are a lot of well-educated and wealthy persons in the Senate. So I don't expect an all-yes Senate. For reps, I think Tajudeen Abbas should be Speaker. And if and when he becomes Speaker, he knows that he did not get there because of his own personal legitimacy, because he's about the most unfriendly among all the aspirants. He's about the most unpopular. So he must be very, very unpopular. So he must have stood on the shoulders of some giants to become what he is. So I think that by that, he will put behind at the back of his mind that he needs to justify the opportunity that he has been given. And if he doesn't, he's not the first speaker that will be impeached if he gets kicked out. Of course, Patricia Ete was here, and we knew how she ended. And historically, if you look at what has obtained in the House of Reps, there have been more ideologically volatile set of people. Particularly now that we have different people from different areas and different set of different ideological divides and political divides. I expect him to manage the various interests very well by trying as much as possible to balance the interests of the godfathers who brought him in with that of the oppositions that he will definitely have. Because somebody was Deputy Senate President. He wants to be somebody was Deputy Speaker. He wants to be Speaker.
And he just has one leg to get in.
But I expect him to be able to manage the interest.
All right.
Politics is about managing interest. Much as the Ninth Assembly has done well, there has been this perception of them, particularly in the Senate, because of what some unguided choices of words that came from Senate President Ahmed Lawan's from sometimes at some point, that whatever comes from the president will be passed. So I expect a different session, a different assembly this time around, a more productive one, particularly for the fact that Nigerians are battling with a lot of economic challenges at this moment. So I expect them to do more.
All right then. Okay.
Let's leave that story.
All right, now away from that, on the Nigerian Tribune this morning, the Borders headline says, Tinubu signs student loan bill into law. What are your thoughts on the student loan bill? Do you think it's a step in the right direction?
Okay, so before you go ahead with it, so we can manage our time, I would like you to also take from the Guardian. Says about 500 billion naira lost to anchor borrowers program. So we would like you to put these two together. The student union loan is there, and then anchor borrowers program. You have this amount of money. It means that so many people took it as national cake. Let's go get our own piece of the pie.
Yes, so I'll start from the loan. This is not the first time we're having this kind of idea or this kind of development in Nigeria. In 1972, there was a Decree 25 that established a board to handle this under the military. So it's not the first. So what will make the difference is how they go about these ones and how they implement it. I expect government to have a special bank for this purpose.
Which they said they do.
And again, I also think that some of the laws in that their regulation,
the terms and conditions,
they are for me they are too extreme.
Wow, really?
Because if you say that only people who have an annual income or whose family have an annual income less than 500,000 naira should apply, that means you are saying that average people should not apply. Because what it means,
you are either up there or you are down here.
No, they are average people in Nigeria, in the Nigerian context.
But do we agree that they are average people?
They are average people in Nigerian context.
I thought we agreed that there's no longer in between. It's either you're poor or you're rich.
You're either a proletaire or you're bush.
Well, for me, I think the average people are still. The average people are mostly found in the academia, in the working class. That people are classified as the average people. So if you say that only people who have less than 500,000 annual income should apply, that means we are saying nobody among the average income cadre or level should apply. Then again, if you say that the loan, the debtor must start paying at exactly 2 years after NYSC, what if the person have not gotten a productive or a gameful engagement?
What if we have to hold President Tinubu from his words during the inauguration, saying that at least 1 million people will be lifted out of unemployment in the digital space?
There have been many such promises and such speeches in the past. What will make the difference in this case is actualization. And you know, in the Nigerian context, there's a lot of trust deficit. I've never seen a country that is disbelieved by its citizens or residents as the Nigerian government. So I think that the loan scheme should not have included these defaulters going to jail. The system, we are all products of the system. It is what the system have made of all of us that we are. As a matter of fact, there is no crime out of government. Government creates the crime for people to commit. And what has happened before Tinubu became president in the last 15 days will still shape a whole lot of developments even within his government. So for me, I think that it was too much for you to say that at least you should raise, I'm not saying that it should be open for everybody to apply, but at least you should raise the bar a little so that at least average people can benefit from the scheme. At least average. Then going to the anchor borrowers scheme, 500 billion, is not unexpected. I don't think anybody should be surprised, because from day one we have always known that there's a lot of fraud under the leadership of they had gone, or the suspended.
Or maybe the arrested one.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should use arrested. The suspended or arrested CBN governor. So we know that some elements just use that to enrich their personal pursuits and do all kinds of personal things, not necessarily for the purpose to which those loans were given. And we know that some sections of the country were favored when compared to other sections of the country with the loans. So it's not unexpected if such revelations are coming up now.
Okay, so if we're talking about expectations, now that he has been taken by the DSS, and then we saw a report yesterday saying that there will be thorough house cleaning, that's coming from the acting CBN. So what are your expectations in that regard? Are you saying, like Sandra will say, that we're wondering what kind of detergents they're going to use to do this house cleaning?
Well, you have to realize the fact that when you say there will be thorough house cleaning, he was not in the house. He was in the house. He was. So I think that.
Well, maybe power now gives you an edge or opportunity to do what you could not.
Maybe, but of course, if he's saying house cleaning, he doesn't need to explain it or announce it to us. If he wants to do things, he should go ahead, get the approval of the president, and do them. Not coming to give us some impression that is different from what has obtained in the system. Nobody who is thoroughly different from the system can survive within the system at his level. He is the deputy. He's next in command. I know there's a lot of things that the superior can do that the next in command the 2IC cannot do in that kind of establishment. But for him to have been sustained and grown to that level, he won't say he's oblivion of some of the things that obtained there that were not according to the law.
Let's quickly take this call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Okay, this is Akin from Lagos State.
Great to hear from you, Akin from Lagos.
Okay, thank you. Let me quickly make my point.
Please do.
Yeah, first and foremost, I just want to call our attention to the fact that Nigeria is already deteriorated. And if we keep on discouraging this present president, nonetheless, whatever way it comes to be the president, let's leave that one aside. We need someone miraculously to just lift us up. Let's listen attentively to whatever idea he's trying to bring out and look into it clearly before we continue criticizing it. First and foremost, I'm not disputing the fact that your analyst there is against certain rules for the loan. Okay, but let's not forget again that it has been national case for so many people whenever systems like this comes up, and there are supposed to be rules. You understand, that will make people to be alert that they are supposed to pay it back. So I'm not completely against that. An issue of 500,000 naira, the government needs to explain to us their actual target, because based on the analysis, it's right. Because if you divide 500,000 naira into 12, it's probably around 60,000 or 70,000, which is within the average people. Then getting back to the National Assembly issue, I want to ask the analyst a question. What determines performance of a National Assembly? Is it by criticizing and blocking the executive, or by what? Because like I had some people are saying that we need a National Assembly that is not going to be a rubber stamp. So do we need a National Assembly that will block the executive from doing the right thing, or what actually do we actually need? So let me stop here so that I won't waste much of our time. Thank you
so much. Very well
Thank
said.
you.
God bless you too, Aki from Lagos. Okay, let's take that his question. What exactly determines the performance of the National Assembly? Because we've also heard the National Assembly complain of how much they've summoned some executive, but yet they don't show up. So there should be stringent laws in that regard.
You see, that question gives back to what are the functions of the National Assembly. The fundamental function of the National Assembly are divided into two: lawmaking and oversight functions. Lawmaking is about putting laws where they are needed and expecting the executive to sanction. Putting laws where they are needed has to do with looking at lacunas in governance, putting up bill to cover them up, then transferring them to the presidency for assent. Now, the other side of it, which is the most important, is the oversight function. The oversight function has to do with checking to know what you make of what is budgeted or what is given to you as government agency. That is where the issues come from. The executive, the DGs, the board chairman, the executive secretaries, they don't want to be checked. And it is in the nature of man, particularly Africans, that we really don't want to be checked. So that is where the arguments come up every time. That's where we always have issues. Now, going back to his question, it's not about we against them. It's about making sure that Nigerians, because once you have the executive and the legislature in a on the same page in the wrong direction, that means the country is heading for a doom.
All right.
So, what will determine their success will be the extent to which they have gone in fulfilling the aforementioned criteria.
All right.
Take for instance, if 10 naira was budgeted for arms and ammunition to the Nigerian military, take for instance, well, somebody has to check to know whether those monies were used to do what they were supposed to be done for. I was privileged to be involved in a particular exercise that has to do with investigation. It was an investigative committee. We went to a particular agency of government, and we got to know that rackets within the cadres of that agency is such that when they arrest people's belongings over the sea, they make sure that they offload those ships and get those ships grounded. And at the long run, they will write that those ships went under.
All right. Israel, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your time with us. Our time is actually fast spent. Thank you so much for your time with us. It's always a pleasure having this talk with you.
Thank you so much for
You're
coming on the
very much welcome.
program.
It's been nice being with you today.